audacity to do something out of the ordinary. Today's guest is a minority within a minority and in a business that is unconventional for her people. Yet she has been named one of the 30 individuals disrupting the fashion industry in 2022. Hello and welcome to Season 6 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Good. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. Today's episode is with a New Zealand-born Samoan entrepreneur, Nora Swann. Nora started many fashion initiatives, from founding the largest high-end fashion show for the Pacific people in New Zealand to starting the first ever Pacific-owned modelling agency. She started a wellness program called Dressed in Confidence, supported by New Zealand's Ministry of Social Development and Ministry for Pacific Peoples, to empower Pasifika people to learn positive body image, professional styling, and self-confidence. In other words, she's helping to keep the Pacific fashion story alive. In today's episode, she talks about being a minority in the fashion industry, as fashion was never a path for the Pasifika people. Nora also talks about pioneering fashion shows and having an unbridled passion for dressing up in her own style. When she works with her clients today as a fashion stylist and more, she's helping them find their personal style so that they are true to themselves. Let's get into today's story. Hello, Nora. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hi, Krista. Good to see you, and thank you for having me.
So, Nora, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you for receiving an award recently. I think it was in November of last year that you got an award. Could you tell us a little bit about the Pacific, is it a Pacific Women Award? Pacific Women in Business Award, yes.
That's right, as part of the Pacific Business Trust's annual event. So, yes, it was the end of November, and a friend nominated me. And, funnily enough, I've been a finalist in a few awards here in New Zealand, but I've always been the maid of honor. So when my friend nominated me, I was like, I don't want to go through this again. The day before our nominations closed, there was a voice in my head that said, you know what, just try. And I stayed up really late to fill out my application. I had, you've got like a template, right? And you've just got to amend it. And so I stayed up really late and I sent through the application. And when I hit send, I was like, okay, it's gone. There's nothing else I can do. And then, it was a real privilege to be, to come out as a winner for Pacific Women in Business. I've been in business for a bit now, 11 years. And the women that I was up against, they were quite amazing women themselves. As we were talking about off air, it's really hard to be Pacific Woman in business, especially in fashion. And so it was a real honor to come out and, as a winner for that category, because I think it means a lot for the Pacific people in fashion here in New Zealand.
And how do you feel, after all these years, 11 years in business? That's a great achievement.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and a lot of people did ask me after I had won, wow. And for me, it was like, tick, and you carry on. And, you would know that, Krista, as a woman in business, it's like, okay, it's a great accolade, but, it's back to business as usual. But it allowed me to kind of reflect on my journey in business and how I've grown. And I connected with a few friends who said, man, I saw you when you first started and, look at you now. And I guess it's perseverance, it's my faith in God, it's having a good support system. So I was able to reflect on all of that and all the good things that have come my way, and also the challenges, that has given me a lot of thick skin to stay in the game of, running a business.
So before we started recording, we talked about you being a Pacific woman in business, and specifically a Pacific woman in the fashion business. So could you talk a little bit about that and how you're a minority within a minority?
Yeah, really hard. Like I said, when I started in business, there were about, I'd say about 10 women who I knew personally in business, but I think one of them was in fashion, and she was doing really well. But most Pacific people, to be an entrepreneur, it's not common territory for us. We our parents migrated to New Zealand, and the goal was really get a good job and buy a house. And once you've done that, you've made it. And so I got a good job. My husband and I bought our house, and I thought, is that it? We never were told to think beyond that. And so there was this voice. When the voice gets louder in your head, then you kind of know, okay, it's time to jump. And so I had an interest in fashion, but, Pacific people in fashion, there's very few. There's only one other person in fashion now. Actually, there's 2 women in fashion now, Pacific, they do really well. And then there's a friend of mine who's from the rainbow community. He does really well as well. So there's about 4 of us, but to go into this industry, it has been a struggle. And I had to smash through a lot of glass ceilings to get to where I am now. I created a lot of events or initiatives that were very foreign. Like, for me, I was just trying to grow my business, not knowing that I was going into unfamiliar territory and saying, well, I want to do this and I can do this for your business, for your organization, not knowing that these ideas were very foreign. And it was kind of like, when I think back, the reaction of people's on their faces was like the audacity of this person to come in here as a Pacific person and say that they want to do this and that. It's never been done before. I never knew that I was creating all these events that were, it was like I was pioneering events. I did not know that. I just thought I was growing my business. And so I came up against so many challenges, but I was following my passion because I loved fashion. It's a cliche 100%, but I absolutely love what I do. And so unbeknownst to myself, I was opening doors for more Pacific people coming through.
And you have a special inclination for fashion, and you were saying that it's a passion of yours. Was that passion in you when you were growing up?
It was. I grew up in a traditional Pacific Island household. So I went to church and I always pushed the boundary with my outfits. I'd always get in trouble from my mom. Too short, too revealing, too much cleavage, not enough clothing. But I wasn't trying to challenge my mom. I just really loved fashion, not knowing that I was doing things that no one else done. And my mum is really traditional. So, she didn't, people would talk. So my mum didn't want to be put in that position. But I think now my mum sees that I really do love fashion, and I didn't know that I was kind of creating trends at the same time. So, when I look back, I kind of laugh and think about everything that I went through and all the hate that I would get. People would be like, she's such a show-off. She's such a try-hard. Whereas here I was just experimenting with fashion and having fun. Yeah.
So that was the genesis of everything.
It really was. And so my children, especially my eldest daughter, I see it in her as well. She loves to dress up. And I guess she's kind of lucky because I'm a very supportive mum, whereas growing up, my mum was like, no, go back in the room and go and get changed. But I would go and get changed, but I would still push the boundary the next time. Yeah. So
that's where all this fashion passions started.
Oh, most definitely. And I had a lot of friends who would say to me, man, you're actually really creative and you should consider this as like a career pathway. But I thought, nah, because for Pacific people, the fashion industry is not a traditional pathway for us. It's either become an All Black or an air hostess or get a good job, but not in fashion. Definitely not in fashion, not in the creative industry.
Then in that case, how do you get your inspiration, or did you have any role models?
You know what? I've been asked this question before, and I kind of feel like when I answer it, people are expecting something really outrageous. But to be honest, I'm inspired by anything and everything, to be honest. Yeah. I think that if you limit yourself, then you're also limiting what you can come up with. So anything.
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit, Nora. I'm very interested for you to go back 11 years and tell us, what was that beginning like for you when you first decided to start your business?
Very scary. My husband's very supportive, but it was because my husband's not an entrepreneur, he didn't get it. But, that sound in my head was getting louder and louder, and it was telling me to jump. So when I first started in business, I actually stayed working in my job, full-time job, for think about 4 years, and I just grew my business. So when I came home from work, I was working, I was hustling, trying to grow my business. And as the business grew, then my full-time turned to a part-time and things like that. But it was very lonely. I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought, you know what? I was given this one opportunity. I won a competition, a big competition here in New Zealand. And that was my one opportunity to just go for it and see where it takes me.
And what was that full-time job that you were holding down?
I was working in the print industry as a sales rep.
So that was totally not even related to fashion.
Yeah, irrelevant. But I must say that the skills I learned in sales, they were transferable. So I did learn a lot about how to sell my service, right, which was my business. So yeah, I'm really grateful for what I learned from, all the jobs I had in the past, because it helped me build my business. But very lonely and very scary. My family, because I was the first one in my family to start a business, my extended family. And so they're all like, what the hell are you doing? You've just left a
great job.
It's money coming in regularly, your comfort zone. And I said, I just can't. This voice is louder in my head. I'm going to do it. And so we struggled for a really long time, and we tried to make things work, and, it was worth it in the end.
You were saying just now, and I wanted to go back to this, is that you said your parents migrated to New Zealand. Where are your parents originally from?
So my parents are from the island. So my mom is from Samoa, and my dad is from Samoa and Niue. So Pacific Islands.
Oh, interesting. Your parents migrated, and then you were born in New Zealand.
Yes. So New Zealand-born Samoan Niuean.
What an interesting lineage.
Yeah. And so for a lot of, that's the same pathway for a lot of Pacific Islanders. Their parents migrated to New Zealand for a better life, right? Better opportunities. So when I decided to leave my job, foreign concept to my parents, my mum, because my dad had just passed away the year before. So she didn't understand. And she was, to be honest, she wasn't very supportive of what I was doing, because she didn't see a pathway to success in the fashion industry, especially as a woman, but also as a Pacific Island woman.
So now I see that on your website, you're doing more than one initiative. You're doing a couple of things. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what kinds of services or what kind of products that you have in your business for people interested in fashion?
So I started out as a personal stylist, and then I went into event management in the fashion industry. And so from there, I started a fashion show called Pacific Fusion Fashion Show. So we're the largest high-end Pacific fashion show in New Zealand, and this year will be our seventh year. I think 7 years ago, I started the Swann Modelling Agency. So the first ever Pacific-owned modelling agency in New Zealand. And then I started a wellness program called Dressed in Confidence 7 years ago. And so we teach self-love with fashion as a medium. So as you can see, fashion is my passion, and I've created all these initiatives around what I love, and they all kind of interrelate and same values and all connected. Yeah, so absolutely love fashion, and I still to this day I love what I do.
And what is it that is different between this? I'm sure the modeling is modeling agency, but between the other two initiatives, what's the commonalities and what are the differences between these two initiatives?
I think it is the fact that and it's something that I hold, it's one of my personal values. So it's being authentic to who you are as a person. So a lot of my customers that come through, in the fashion industry, there's this depiction of what beautiful is, right? And so I'm all about embracing and celebrating who you are as a person, and then using that to, be the best version of yourself. So that's what we also teach in our Dressed in Confidence program. And we predominantly work with Indigenous people, so Pacific and Māori, and we teach them to love themselves for who they are as a person rather than who everyone else is telling you to be.
So all your programs are they for the Indigenous people or mostly for them?
Yeah, it's predominantly for Indigenous people. Yeah.
And what has been the response or the uptake of those programs?
Well, the good thing is, for our Dressed in Confidence initiative, we're the only ones in New Zealand that runs this program. And so for me, I know that, there's young guns coming in, so we need to be ahead of the ball game right? And always innovating and staying ahead and starting the trends and things such as that. So that's where we've been really lucky. And the same with our fashion shows and a lot of fashion events that I run. I've been really blessed where in the Pacific community, if you talk about fashion, everyone kind of knows, well, go talk to Nora. She's well connected. She knows, who's who in the Pacific community and mainstream fashion as well. So I'm really connected there, well connected there. And that the fact that I kind of was the first Pacific Islander to go into those spaces has really helped me with my branding and where I kind of position myself in the industry. So I'm really blessed in that sense that I've positioned myself well enough where it's not a hard sell anymore. When you first start out in business, you're trying to sell your product, you're doing whatever, all the marketing strategies in the world to connect with your client. But because I've been in the ball game for a long time and I was like a pioneer, I'm quite well established now and it's easy to sell. I get a lot of inquiries come through to me now.
One of the things that I love talking about is these days, because there's this thing about sustainability, right? And there's also this talk about fast fashion and how it's really not good for our planet. So what are your thoughts about this and how are you navigating this important concern? And I'm sure the millennials are very concerned about this.
Oh, most definitely. What's interesting is that I grew up, and this is kind of how I discovered my own personal style. I loved op shopping. And I think I first went op shopping because my parents migrated to New Zealand, so we were not wealthy people. And so I learned, I can't remember how I discovered op shops, but do you know what op shops are?
Thrift shops.
Second-hand stores. So they're quite big here in New Zealand. And I came across it because we didn't have a lot of money. But what it actually helped me do was it helped me experiment with fashion and find my own style. And this is where I became really creative. So I had this initial love of secondhand clothing anyway, but I knew nothing about, the importance of, buying secondhand and how it slows down that process of clothing into the landfills and things such as that. And I didn't know the beauty of how you could repurpose clothing. And so one of our values is that we're sustainably aware. And so we take a lot of our students secondhand shopping. And the main reason we do that now is that we're helping them find their personal style or build their self-confidence through their style and making sure that when they look in the mirror, the person looking right back at them, they know that person who's looking right back at them, and there's, they're not trying to be someone else. So from the get-go of running my business, I've always been sustainably aware. And although it started out for me as well, I couldn't afford it back then, I actually really love it and have a really different viewpoint of it now. For me, it's all about helping you find your personal style so that you're true to yourself. So we push this in all of our programs. And, we live in this world now where, fast fashion, it's so crazy. And a lot of our people don't even understand what, the implications of fast fashion and what it's doing to the environment. I mean, fashion is the second industry that is creating so much pollution in the world. It's shocking. And so we try and educate all the participants on our program about buying secondhand and repurposing your clothing and, and stretching the lifespan of your clothes so that we're doing our bit, look at climate change, we're doing our bit to slow down this really ugly process and trying to get them to understand the circular model of what buying secondhand can do or repurposing your clothing.
Yeah, I like that take because I think that too often in fashion, people just think of buying new and never thinking that how can I shop my own closet or wardrobe? And I think that's coming back in style, right? A lot of people really are shopping pre-loved.
It really is. And we teach our participants about sustainable wardrobes, how you can mix and match your clothing to create all these different outfits for your working wardrobe. Yeah.
And I'm glad you're addressing that. And I'm glad you addressed it even from the beginning when you started your business.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's funny was that when I first started out, I was embarrassed that I used to shop secondhand. And so that's the stigma that I'm trying to change now with this generation because, it's part of the life cycle. We're going to move on. So I'm trying to teach my daughters, don't be embarrassed about buying secondhand. You're actually doing your bit to help this world that we live in. We need to look after it.
And speaking of that, Nora, you've been in business for 11 years. I'm sure there are plenty of misconceptions about the business and the industry. Are there any that comes to your mind right now?
Yeah, there's two actually. The first one is everyone who comes into fashion thinks they just think about the fame, it's all about being famous, especially if you work in the arts industry. It's all about what happens in front of the camera, but you need a blimmin' hustle, man. You can't just come up for the good times and take all the credit. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of people come in, want to connect with me and ask me to be their mentor because they love fashion and they love what they see. And I said, but you don't really see what really happens behind the scenes. No one sees that. So that's the first big misconception. The second one is faking it till you make it. I do not believe in that. You have to face it. You have to face it and figure it all out. Don't fake it, because then if you take on that mentality, you're always going to fake it and you're never going to, there's all that internal processing and reflection that needs to take place for you to grow. And a lot of people try and skip that. And so then they're cutting corners, they're not, at the cutting corners, the standard's not that great, and they're not actually growing themselves.
And what's been most helpful for you in terms of all these years in business that you found that you could really use it as advice for yourself or even for others intending to break into the industry or intending to get started in the industry like yourself 11 years ago?
I would say definitely having a good support system. So whether it's mentors or your husband, your children, and I think that's really important. People who, there's a lot of, sheep and wolves clothing, right, around you, and it's knowing to decipher the difference between who's really your friend and wants to support you or who's there for their own personal agenda. That's a big one for me. Yeah.
And what's your take? I know this is a common in any industry. What's your take on competition or collaboration? Because I think these days these two terms are either used intermittently. Either people feel that they have a lot of competitors or they feel they have a lot of collaborators. What's your point or what's your viewpoint on this?
I think it's important that you stay in your own lane, right? But you have to know that competition is healthy at the same time, because it helps you stay on top of your own toes and in front of the game. I'm big on collaboration, but at the same time, it's really important to me who I collaborate with. So I usually do research, who have they worked with before? And if we've got mutual networks, I will ask other people, like, what was it like working with them? Because I've had enough, experiences of working with people who weren't good for me, and I've learned a lot from that. And so now I'm very mindful of who I work with moving forward. Even there's so many people in fashion who come and ask me to write a testimonial for them. And at the same time, I'm very wary of that as well, because if they're going to go and stuff up, that's my name as well. Yeah.
And especially in a community like yours, where it's everyone knows everyone.
Oh, that's it. And with Pasifika, I guess this could be general. Like, there's always that, oh, you're my friend, so of course you're gonna, help me out. But I'm always wary that, well, actually, we had an experience that wasn't that good, and I'm I still help out, but I'm very careful with the words I write in the testimonial.
So, what's a typical day in Nora's life, or is there an untypical day?
I think it's very untypical. So I have 2 youth full-time workers and a 3rd youth part-timer, and then I've got, I think, 12 subcontractors, quite regular. And then I've worked with so many people in fashion, Pacific in particular, so about 500 people on my database. So every time I get projects, I subcontract based on what the requirements are and what the skill sets are of the people in my books. So with the projects that we get, it's different every day, which my youth love, because then it's different. And for me as well as a creative, there's never 2 same days in my working week, which is really fun. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
So does it mean you get to play with a lot of clothes and do a lot of catwalking?
You know what? It does. It does mean that I'm always around clothing. And funnily enough, when I was in Hawaii for the East West Center workshop, and people were saying to me, are you going to shop? And I said, no way. I'm always around clothing where I have opportunities to shop, not only for my clients, for projects, or for myself, that when I'm on holiday, I do not want to go shopping. I'll
That's
buy
a job, right?
I'll buy something if I come across it, but I will not intentionally put shopping in my schedule because I'm over shopping, to be honest. Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and say, Nora, I need you to shop with me, what would be the first few things you would say to that person?
Yeah, so I do have a few personal or professional styling clients. So usually they get a style file, which is a form from me, and I get all their personal details, and I find out a lot about their personal style, what they like, who they get inspiration from in terms of their personal or professional image. And there's a whole heap of questions that help me understand who they are as a person and why they're wanting to change or where they're wanting to go moving forward. Yeah.
Have you seen cases where the client that you've helped, initially they're in their new style and then they lapse into what they were back to where they were
I
before?
have. Unfortunately, I've had a couple who we've gone shopping together and they've spent thousands of dollars, and then they've decided that it wasn't them. And for me, it actually comes down to them not being ready at that time. Even though they thought they were ready, they weren't actually ready. So for me, connection to self, authentic self, was really, really important. And I think when in reflection and I look back to see what could I have done differently to have helped them, they do really need to be honest, not to me, but with themselves, that they are ready for this next change, because that's a big change. Yeah.
And people will look at it differently based on what they wear, how they dress up, how they put on their makeup.
Yeah. I mean, they come to me for different reasons, like there's either a new job, or there's weight loss, or there's weight gain, or it's the new year, they want to start anew. But for me, it's, are you really ready? That's the big question that you need to ask yourself, because this is going to be very transformational, but you need to be ready mentally and internally. Yeah.
And if there are people who are wondering about who Nora is, what would you say to them? Like, who's Nora? And Nora is a fashion business owner, or how would you describe Nora?
That's a really funny question, because I get that often. And I actually grew an introvert. So I'm very introverted, but when it comes to fashion, I'm very loud. So people are really surprised when they meet me, and I'm really down to earth. And I say to them, I'm just me. I'm honestly just me. And I know it comes with the territory. And I don't consider myself a celebrity. I don't consider myself a public figure. I just consider myself someone who loves fashion, and I'm living life, and I'm doing what I can to serve my community and help share that love. So it's been really weird when people come up to me and they talk to me and they say, oh, I wanted to see what you really look like, or I wanted to see what you're really like. And I'm like, OMG, I'm just me. And I think it's part of the territory of the industry that I'm in. But I think I thank my friends and my family that have helped me stay grounded, if that makes sense. But because I'm not all about all that, the normal glitz and glam and the fame that comes with the industry. I've managed to really stay authentic to who I am as a person. And even with my clients that I get, it's all about authentic connections. Yeah. I hope that's answered that question, but it's
very interesting. It's interesting that you say you're an introvert, but at the same time, you love dressing up and you love showing off the best that you have to offer the world.
I know.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
I'm a real juxtaposition. I tell you, like, when I catch up with people that I went to high school with, they cannot believe that it's me. I'm the girl who never liked public speaking. I would wag school because I was meant to be talking at an event and I was too shy. I never liked boys in high school. I was really shy. And so when people see me now, they're like, is that the same Nora? Oh my gosh, she was like a mouse. Never said a word. But yeah, I do know that a lot of creatives, they are quite introverted, but when it comes to their art
creations,
yes, they're very loud. And that's me. That's definitely me, yeah. And so when part of my job, I do a lot of this, podcasts, interviews on TV. And after I need to go and refuel myself, because that's how I am as an introvert. I've figured, I'm all good with that. But it is very interesting when I get attention, because you're right. It's like I unintentionally attract attention. It's like I'm attention seeking, but I'm not. Yeah.
But you also want I guess it's not just you, but you want your creations to attract attention.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think it comes back to, it's just, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do. Yeah. My skills.
So since you talk about your passion, what you do, so what's the best part about your business and what's the worst part about your business?
The best part is, I'm going to say, the flexibility. I can, if I don't feel like working during the day, then I know, well, I've got to sacrifice and work on the weekend. And I don't mind that. I love that. I can go. That was one of the big things about starting my business, was that I wanted to go to my kids' stuff, I wanted to be in control of your own life, which is what an entrepreneur is all about, right? We hate people telling us what to do. So that's one of the best things. So one of the things that I hate is that the accountability is all on me at the same time. You would know that, if no one else does it, and when people call in sick and all of that, who has to do it? Well, me. I'm the one that does all I run a small business, and I'm quite comfortable with the size of my business, but I'm also the person who's still there at the end, cleaning up and, doing all that, the crappy stuff that people don't see. But, it's the pros and cons of running your own business.
Yeah. So that's the sacrifice that we have to put in, because we want the freedom, we want the flexibility. Yeah, we don't want people telling us what to do.
Yeah.
And yet we have to, do whatever we need to do to get things done.
That's right. I'm very big on execution. And so I know that if other people who I can't control, you can't control other people, if they don't do it, at the end of the day, it comes back to me.
Yeah. And where is your business headed next? Since this is 2023.
So we've outgrown the space we're in. So before Christmas, we were trying to move. We were looking at inspecting other businesses, bigger, buildings, and we tried to lock one in before Christmas, but it didn't happen. So we are planning on moving into a bigger premise and doing more work in the Pacific region, which is really exciting, actually. Yeah.
And what kind of resources or people that you're intending to connect with?
I absolutely love working with other entrepreneurs, especially in fashion, but in the creative industry. I do think that we're a bit weird, but we love being weird, and we speak the same weirdness, people in the creative industry, which has been a really good thing, because I used to think I was the only weirdo. And then I met a whole heap of other creatives who were entrepreneurs, and I thought, oh, cool, there's more of us. We can freely be us with no judgment and things like that. So I love to connect with more people who think like me in the business space, for sure.
And now that we have covered all about the business, what about Nora? What was Nora like growing up?
I think I kind of touched on it earlier. Very shy, but very stubborn, which is why I became an entrepreneur. Yeah, didn't like any attention, was not into boys, was kind of a tomboy, to be honest. Used to, I loved hanging out with my brother, so no interest in fashion. Yeah, I never thought I would be working in the industry I'm in now, that's for sure. Yeah.
So it's like a total surprise. You look back and then you think of that Nora and present Nora and think that, wow, you've gone so much.
The opposite. Yeah. And I studied Japanese when I was in high school. And then also at university, I went and lived in Japan and I taught English. And I think that's where my love of Japan, of fashion, came from. was living in Japan, just seeing all the different fashion around me. Japanese people are very cool. And I think that's where the love of fashion came.
And you overcame that introvertedness to become a fashion person.
That's it. But I'm still very introverted now. When I talk to a lot of people, I'm not, I like small circles. I don't go out, and I network because it's part of my business, and I've taught myself to enjoy it. But I still like to just Saturday night just be at home with my family. But every now and then I like to let steam out. But I still feel like I'm very introverted, and a lot of people have said that to me. Wow, you're very loud in your fashion. You're very approachable and nice, and all those nice soft words. And my fashion is the polar opposite.
Which is great, because I think everyone needs that alter ego part of you.
That's it, yeah.
And what about your family right now? Are you living in the place that you were born and grew up in?
So I was brought up in South Auckland in a place called Otara. And then my husband and I, he's from Otara as well. He's Samoan, a New Zealand-born Samoan. We've got 2 daughters and a dog. So we lived in Manurewa, which is still in South Auckland. But we currently live in East Tamaki, Otara. We recently bought my husband's parents' home. So we're now in this home. And these past couple of weeks, I've actually been renovating. So I will not show you my nails because I've been doing some hard yaka. It's terrible. But I was actually excited to get dressed up today for our podcast, because it's the first time I've kind of dressed up, because I've been living in my gym gear. I'm quite a fitness fanatic, so if I'm not in my work gear, then I'm in my gym gear.
And what do you do at the gym? What kind of exercises or stuff that you do?
Well, I used to CrossFit. So, that's a lot of endurance work, a lot of weightlifting, things like that. And then I got injured. And so now I just go to a regular gym and I do cardio and I do light weights and things like that. But I've been gymming for 25 years. And so I know the importance of staying, active, and it helps me. I do think it helps me with the business as well. It's good therapy, when you're pissed off, I just go pick a heavy weight and drop that instead. And it helps me release the stress.
And what are you no longer afraid of?
I am no longer afraid of men in business suits. So, as a Pacific woman, and this might be similar to your culture, but it's always about the men. And we're always here to be subservient, women, wives, and, I had that kind of upbringing. And so I think that kind of made me, as I went into business, I was really scared of men in business suits, because I thought, wow, they hold all the authority and the power, and they get the last say. But since being in business and, and creating a lot of my own opportunities, I am no longer afraid of men in business,
So glad to hear that. And are there any crazy things that you've done, or any craziest things that you ever done come to mind?
Crazy things. I think because I was this introverted person, this whole journey has been really crazy for myself. Like I feel like I've grown every year in business because I've done things that I never thought I'd do. I've been taken to court 3 times in business, and I've won them 3 times. Me as this shy, introverted girl who thought that I had to just listen. But, business with integrity is big for me. And if I know that I didn't do anything wrong, then I wasn't going to let this Goliath get the better of me. And so I found myself in a lot of situations where the old me would not have, who would have backed down, but I fought a lot, and so I'm very resilient now. So I think that's a lot of crazy stuff that I've come up against, and I've come out on top because I didn't give in to some bully. Yeah.
And were the court cases related to fashion and business?
Yeah, business.
Okay.
Or business, yeah.
And you won.
I have won. I've come out on top, yeah.
And who has had a tremendous impact on you?
For me, I'm going to say I'm religious. So I will say God. And you know what's really funny was that when I first started out in business, like I spent so much money on business programs, and what else? Workshops. And a lot of it, what I've learned was things that were in the Bible, you know, the 10 Commandments, things such as that. And yeah, I found that the Bible has really helped me, and I'm really grateful to my having strong faith, especially in business and the challenges that you come up against. Like God's really helped me stay focused and kind of navigated my journey as a businesswoman. Yeah.
And do you have any unusual habits?
Unusual habit, you know what? To help me with my memory, if someone says to me, do you remember when we did this or what happened here? The way I remember what happened or where I was what I wore.
So that's your memory hook.
It is. Strangely enough, it is.
So you can remember.
If I can remember what I wore, then I'll be like, I can. And so I don't share with them, but usually in my head, I'm like, because I wore this, and then I remember everything that happened around it.
That is really highly unusual.
It's weird, I know, but I have a photographic memory with my outfits.
Okay, wow. You must have a lot of memories centered around clothes and what you were wearing at a specific time in your life.
I know, even with what other people wore. So who knows, Krista, in a few months I might say to you, I remember what you wore, Krista, when we had our podcast.
You are really having it connects with the business, right? Because I would have assumed that you would say something really quirky, but this is really into the business, into the fashion world that you are in.
Yeah.
What about a personal goal? Any personal goals that you focus on right now?
Sometimes I'm top heavy on my business, and I just had this conversation with my husband where I'm trying to bring up my family life, because I love my business, I love to do fitness, and I love my family, but you try and balance them all, and sometimes one is always overlapping the other. So it's bringing up my family, especially as my kids are getting older now.
Okay. Do you have any productivity hacks that you could share with us?
Productivity hacks.
Or clothes hacks. This is a great fashion. We're talking about fashion. Any clothes hacks if we can't think of productivity?
Clothes hacks. You know what? If you add one extra piece, whether it's a piece of clothing or an accessory to your wardrobe, I kid you not, you can come up with at least 10 fantastic outfits. Yeah, I don't know if that's a hack, but that's a fact.
So to add one piece to what you already have right now, you can create 10 extra looks.
At least, yeah.
At least.
Even if it's an accessory, I've learned that.
Okay. You must create a video on that. You must make a video to show how that is done and how Nora put Nora's take on it. Have you thought about your productivity hack?
Oh, productivity hack. You know what? I'm one of those, I've learned, like, for example, being on holiday, I've still been getting up at 6 o'clock, breakfast, and straight into my back renovations. Like, just do it. Don't make up excuses. Just do it.
Are you a very task-oriented person?
Yes, and very methodical.
Okay.
Yeah. And I love it. Like, I've been working on my deck. Boxing Day, I said I was going to do it, and I was out there and have been, I think the longest I was working on my deck was 12 hours, and I got in trouble from my husband because I was enjoying it. Yeah, thoroughly enjoying it as well. And it's looking really good too, so I can't wait till it's finished.
No wonder your nails are gone.
Oh, totally. But I can't, I get really bored if I'm just sitting there and watching a movie. Like, I also have been doing puzzles to keep my brain going. Yeah.
Okay. So what's that one key takeaway that you want listeners to remember as a result of listening to our interview today?
The one key takeaway would be, I don't want it to be cheesy, when I think about everything that we've just gone through the past 2 years, life is too short, man. Live. Go out there and live. Do what it is that your heart, that keeps that passion going. Yeah. Life's too short. Live.
Before we wrap up, I just want to say that, you've been featured in so many places in the media, and you're working with the New Zealand Ministry of Social Development and Ministry for Pacific People and empowering Pacific people. Where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
One of my ultimate goals is to help grow the Pacific fashion community here in New Zealand. So I'd like to help mold what that looks like moving forward. I'd like to leave a legacy of that created opportunities and opened doors for our people here in New Zealand as a minority in fashion, because we have so much to offer. But there's very minimal resource and support. So I'm trying to have all these conversations with the different government agencies to help lift the profile of the Pacific fashion community, so we can share, our talents with the next generations coming through, and to keep the Pacific fashion story alive.
Yeah, I like that, to keep the Pacific fashion story alive. What a great way to end our interview. So finally, where can people find you online?
You can find me on my website, so www.noraswann.co.nz. I'm on Facebook, Nora Swann. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram.
So thank you so much, Nora. I had great fun talking to you today, and I'm so glad that we connected. And you are definitely one of those people who surprises me, because I never would have thought that you said you're an introvert. I always imagine fashion people to be extroverts, because you like all your clothes and your colors. But I live and I learn every single day.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can meet in person one day, but thank you so much for the opportunity, and nice to connect with you.
It has never been done before. How many times have you heard people say that? Nora had the audacity to do what has never been done before, at least for her Pacific people. She didn't let naysayers and conventions stop her from living her dream through fashion. Unbeknownst to her then, she was opening doors for Pacific women in the fashion world. The next time you hear someone say that it has never been done before, take it as a challenge to do it. Yes, you could fail and fall flat on your face. You could also succeed and learn something wonderful and go on to create bigger things in your life and help people and influence them positively. If you have enjoyed today's conversation, share this episode with a friend or follow me on Instagram at Womenpreneur Asia. It's been a pleasure having you here with me, and I will see you next Friday.